7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Welcome into the Vegas Squares Podcast, Picks and Chatter edition. This is our NCAA edition of Picks and Chatter. We are sitting here in studio, sort of. I've got Tony Johnson on my left.
What's going on?
Very emphatic hello.
I didn't know you wanted anything from me right away, but okay. Here we are.
And I've got empty mic on my right, but on the telephone is Token Tony Felipe.
Woo! What's up, all?
Wow, that's the most excited I've ever... You know what I miss the most about Token not being across the table here is all of those great snacks and drinks.
Yeah.
And all the good smells coming from that side. Well, some of the good smells. Well, I mean...
Wait, calm yourself there.
Actually, the last time we did a podcast, I had no snacks.
That's a travesty.
Yeah.
Total travesty.
Yeah, because he stuffed his face. All right, Token Tony, I know you're on the road. You're talking about watching the MAC Championship. But if I had to give you 2 games to be at on Saturday, would you rather be at Akron versus South Carolina for tickets as low as $7? Or Drake and Iowa State for tickets as low as $2?
Wow.
I would say Drake and Iowa State.
Okay.
Because you say $5?
No, not only. I mean, that's part of the factor, but not. That's towards the bottom. I think Iowa State's a much better team. Drake might be able to give them a little contest.
Oh.
Maybe it's a little interesting to see how low scoring this is.
All right, well, let's make a prop bet here. You can have the first pick. Which team keeps it closer, Drake or Akron? Margin of loss, I guess.
I'll take Drake.
Okay, I'll take Akron. All right, since the ticket price difference is $5, that'll be our prop bet. $5.
Nice.
All
right, but in all seriousness, I will ask you this. How about this? Of the conference championships, we have Texas versus Oklahoma. We have who else do we have this week? We have Alabama and Georgia. We have Fresno State, Boise State, Clemson, Pittsburgh, Northwestern Ohio State, and Memphis and UCF. Which one of those would you rather be at?
Me, I would probably be at the Texas-Oklahoma game. I think those are 2 very good teams to watch. It should be high scoring. I mean, Texas did win this last time around, but I think it's going to be a different story this time with all the pressure on Oklahoma to try and sneak into the playoff, and I think they might get it done. So,
well, I think you can get there if you leave the Buffalo game at 10 p.m. when it ends in Michigan. You may have a shot to get to Arlington, Texas by 11 a.m. the next day.
Could be done.
Yeah.
Well, you're getting an hour back in travel time, so it's a shot.
Could definitely be done. And it's Jerry World, too, though. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. It'd be fun.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'd rather see this game than the Cowboys game, but yeah.
Fair enough.
Oh, for sure.
All right. Well, without further ado, we're going to dive into the picks. But first, we want to thank the sponsors, 12 Ounce Sports Radio, for putting this on. We want to thank all those guys over there for all the big things we're doing. We are on every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Saturday, which you are hearing right now, Saturday morning, before we get you caught up before all of what is championship weekends in the college football realm. We want to thank VGK Pop Sockets, and we want to thank ChaiPoker.com for all of their extended supports. And today, December 1st, is Chai Poker's charity tournament. A little dyslexic today. Chai Poker's charity tournament. So if you're listening to this, you're in Vegas, or you're flying in real soon, South Point, 7 p.m., be there, or, don't. Anyways.
I thought you were going to say be there or be square.
Yeah, no. Tony, before we dive in, what is the matchup that if you had tickets to all the games, you would want to be at? Memphis UCF?
I would. Well, I'll take a different game, although Texas Oklahoma I think is a very, very viable option. I would actually, my choice would be Georgia Alabama for a couple of reasons. One is totally obscure and unnecessary, is that I do want to see this new stadium in Atlanta. I've heard it's really awesome.
It is really nice. I can attest to that.
Oh, that's right. You were there. So I would like to see that and go. So that's part one. And I've been to AT&T Stadium before, and it is fantastic in itself. But I actually think that it'll be a really good game, and I think Georgia is going to have a decent chance. We'll get to that later, but I like both of these teams, and I think it'll be a whole lot of fun. And compared to the Texas-Oklahoma game, these two teams I think are better. Overall, I think we'll see better football, as we pointed out, and with the total being 78 in the Oklahoma game. There's not a whole lot of great defense there, whereas there is in this one. So that's the game that I would choose, although it's close between those two.
I got to say, it's unfortunate you picked the SEC Championship because I was actually going to find the room in the budget to send you to one of these games so that you could cover it for us. But according to ESPN, it is the only game where tickets are more than $60.
Yeah, that does.
Yeah.
They are tickets as low as $251.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I just saw that too. Yeah.
You can get, according to this, it may only be a parking pass, but I haven't dug as deep, but you can at least get to the parking lot of the Big 12 championship game for $58.
Wow. Yeah, that is surprisingly expensive for the SEC championship.
I would have said that was cheap for the SEC championship game. I've been to an SEC championship game, and I think I paid like $300 or $400. It was
oh my goodness,
Florida versus Alabama in a Tebow year.
Jeez, that's a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
You can get upper reserve tickets to the Big 12 championship game for, actually it's a little more than $58. It's $76. So
okay,
that's still pretty reasonable. Yeah.
You can sit in the back.
Just don't send me to Boise is all I ask. I'll get too cold.
You don't want to go to the Smurf Turf?
I mean, I do want to go there eventually too, but just in one of the early games of the season.
I'll send you there in a hot air balloon.
Well, that would be interesting.
All right, well, you guys
them
are
in
ready
the
for
blimp.
picks. They're ready for picks, so it's time to dive into the slate this weekend. And without further ado, we'll get involved. What's the first matchup? Let's start with that first matchup, and that is Texas and Oklahoma. It is the earliest of the conference championship games, so it's 9 o'clock Pacific time. It's my last week of the year to mess this up before the bowl season. Number 14 Texas versus newly minted number 5 Oklahoma. Like I said, game starts at 9 a.m. Pacific in AT&T Stadium. The line currently has Oklahoma as an 8-point favorite, and the total 78.
Yeah, well, I guess I'll lead this one off quickly here. This is a good one. I think everyone is generally expecting Oklahoma to roll. They've had a lot of close games recently, granted that, but the fact that Texas won the first game in the Red River Shootout many months ago, and the fact that Texas clearly doesn't have nearly as good of a record and hasn't looked as good overall, and their offense isn't as dynamic. I think the public and for the most part, everyone is just expecting Oklahoma to rebound here and win this one and move on. The thing that gives me pause, though, is Texas and their record as an underdog is superb. It's not only superb under the new regime here, but it's been really good for the last 10 years, despite the fact they haven't had a lot of great teams. So that always gives pause. This year has been no different. They've covered every line from a 7-point favorite all the way down to an underdog, except for one this year. The only lines they haven't covered are the ones where they've been big favorites. They haven't covered any of those. But and this team, I think, just plays like that. They are a tough, actually more defensive-minded team than they have been in recent times. And they've been much better of late. They did a really nice job against Iowa State last year, who's given some teams problems. I grant you, I know Iowa State was without running back Montgomery for a half, and that came into play. But I like what they're doing here. That was a couple weeks ago. And Sam Ehlinger looked healthier last week from the previous injury, that shoulder injury that he got in the Iowa State game. And I think with a healthy Sam Ehlinger, they can have a chance to beat almost anybody in the country. He's that important to this team, and I like what's going on there. They have 2 very good receivers and a young up-and-coming freshman running back, Keontae Ingram, that is getting better and better as the weeks go on, and he's stealing carries from Trey Watson, which is probably a good thing. So all that being said, I don't think Oklahoma's going to get stopped necessarily here, and it will be a very high-scoring game in that 78 range. Don't know what I would do with the total, but my strong lean here would be on Texas getting the 8 points.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tony, on that statement. I think Texas does cover. I believe Oklahoma does get the win, though. I think this game is very high-scoring, almost similar to the last one. Just the team that wins is flipped. I believe Oklahoma wins this game 48-45.
So basically a reverse opposite of the Red River rivalry.
Yep,
which was
exactly,
Texas 48-45, where they both put up 1,033 yards combined offense.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the key for Texas, if they want to have a shot, is to do what they did last time, and that's semi-contain Kyler Murray. I mean, he threw the ball 300 yards, but, I mean, I know this sounds crazy, but 11 carries for 92 yards doesn't sound like Kyler Murray type video game stats. In the last matchup, pretty much everybody got theirs. Ellinger had a huge game, like you talked about. He's now produced the two total highest offensive outputs for Texas quarterbacks against Oklahoma in 113 games in this rivalry.
Wow.
He had 386 this year, 388 last year.
Yeah.
You don't believe that shoulder injury is going to affect him?
I don't. Not at this point. From the information I got, he's trending to about 100% right now. So
Fair enough.
What I hear.
Fair enough. And obviously, my favorite guy in college football.
Oh yes,
Lil Jordan Humphrey.
Yes. I specifically didn't say his name, so you would.
Did you allow me that?
I did.
Did you grace me that? Thank you.
I did.
72 catches for 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. You talked about the 2 good receivers. Only one of 14 pairs of receivers with 55 catches each and 6 touchdowns. That's pretty impressive, especially since Ellinger, even despite the Oklahoma game, hasn't been an offensive juggernaut like he was that week. So
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, where to take this is really hard. I feel like Oklahoma, if they can figure out Texas defense, they've got no obstacle in front of them. But 8 points is a lot. I'm going to say that everybody's going to be pounding the over on this one. I think the over could get even higher, up to maybe even 80, even though it has gone down a point. It has gone from 78 to 77. I think before the game starts Saturday, I think this game could get pushed up another point or 2. I'm going to say this game, Oklahoma wins. I will agree with you on that. I'm going to say Oklahoma wins 38-31. And the question would be is if that's sexy enough of a victory, depending on what Ohio State does later on in the night.
Yeah, we could talk about that for many minutes on that subject.
Well, we're going to get to that later because that's going to be a topic to discuss after we discuss each of the games. So I think we're all on a version of Texas in this spot.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move forward. We have the Conference USA Championship, which is a pick'em between the University of Alabama Birmingham, UAB, and Middle Tennessee State. First off, before we even get into this, kudos to the UAB program for already being back in a title game. I believe it was 2 years ago they didn't have a football program?
Correct.
That's pretty damn impressive. So tip of the cap to them no matter what the outcome of this matchup is to be. That being said, it is a pick'em, and where is this game located? Is it in Tennessee?
UAB.
It's at UAB?
In Birmingham, yep.
Are you sure?
No, it's in Tennessee.
Oh, really? I thought it was
Floyd Stadium, Murfreesboro.
Really?
Yep.
So you have a pick'em.
They were hosting.
You would be incorrect, sir. They are 9-3. They have a better record. I don't know what their conference record is. But
both conference records are 7-1.
Is that one loss for UAB against them? I don't know. Anyways, UAB's playing some pretty damn good defense this year.
They just won last week. They played last week.
Oh, they played last week, yeah, and they beat them 24-3.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that changes a lot of what I was thinking of. UAB only got 89 total yards in that game. Well, a pick 'em this week, though. That throws everything off. Token Tony, I'll let you start this. The line is pick 'em. The total is 44.5.
Give me UAB. I think they bounce back
Everything I
from
just
that.
said. Give them UAB.
Yep. I think they bounce back in this one. I like the under as well. I believe this will be lower scoring. Total currently 44.5. I believe like 17-14 kind of game. UAB with the win.
Wow. I don't know if I can agree with that.
Yeah, it's an interesting game because they just played exactly last week, and I think part of the reason that it was so one-sided was Middle Tennessee needed a win and help. They needed Florida International to lose, and they needed a win to get in from their side, and that happened. And then UAB had already clinched a few weeks back, so they weren't really playing for anything, and they still had somebody get hurt. Their best offensive player, Spencer Brown, sophomore running back, he's questionable to play in this game, and he's been a horse ever since the program got restarted last year. He was the incoming true freshman and was very, very good. Actually got some spots to go to some big Power 5 schools, and he chose to go to UAB to get this thing started. So that's kind of interesting in its own right. But Middle Tennessee has really come a long way here. Rick Stockstill has been there for a while now, and he even got his son to come and play, and they've really grown a lot over the last 4 years. And his son Brent Stockstill is the starting quarterback, and he's been the full-time starter the last 3 seasons, and he's gotten better and better as time has gone on. So it's interesting to see these father-son type of things. We've seen it before in some other spots, but this one has really worked out very well in a very small, odd sort of place. Murfreesboro is not on most people's maps, but it's hard
on
to
my map. I just don't know where it is.
Yeah, it's hard to ignore the last week. I mean, winning the game by that much has to be meaningful, and just the only thing I have is the fact that it was exactly last week, and it's hard to win 2 games like this back to back. We saw Fresno against Boise State last year do the same thing, where they could not win back-to-back games. They played them. They played Boise, and then they had to play them again in the conference championship game, and they couldn't win that one. So I'm not trying to say it's the same thing as this Fresno situation, but I don't know. It's going to be tough to do. I think that UAB's defense is masterful and maybe the best defense in the Group of 5 conferences. All of the teams, they are really that good. It's either them or Fresno. I'm not really sure, but I like it a lot, and I agree with Token. I'm be erring on the side of a low-scoring game. Total's already pretty low, but my side would be UAB laying the points here, and I know they opened as a dog, and they've gone all the way to almost a favorite. So, and I think that's the right side. So I'd be on UAB -1.
You got them as a favorite? I never had them as a favorite.
I thought
I have them as a pick 'em.
I have it as a
pick. Okay,
too.
well either way,
UAB
is pick. Yeah. So.
All right, fair enough. I'm looking at Middle Tennessee State here, and you're talking about how UAB didn't really play and everything, and Middle Tennessee needed the game. And I don't know, just Middle Tennessee 5-0 at home. Haven't lost a game at home this year. Conference matchup, even though it's a conference title game, still effectively going to be a home game for the Blue Raiders. I think I lean on the over in this spot because they put up 30 points last week with only one team really trying. I'm not saying that UAB is going to do a worse job of holding them this year or this week when they play a little bit. They play a little bit more, but I think we could see Middle Tennessee State putting up somewhere close to 24 points, and I think UAB putting up somewhere close to that same amount. I think Middle Tennessee State's going to get the win by 3 points. I'm not sure an exact score, but I think it's going to go over. I think we're going to see something like 27-24 or somewhere right around closer to the total. I think this game's going to go over, and I think Middle Tennessee State's going to win it. Yeah, I look at, and again, I don't have a lot of information and a lot of tape, personal film watching on the Group of 5, but you're talking about Stockstill, and he's got 2,800 yards, 26 touchdowns, 6 interceptions with a 71% completion percentage. If Middle Tennessee State's objective is to stop Brown, you have to then rely on Erdley, who has 1,500 yards, 7 touchdowns, 7 picks, and a 55% completion percentage. So if you can shut down one facet of UAB, the other facet, the passing game, isn't that sexy, in my opinion. So I think that's what Middle Tennessee is going to attempt to start. And if Brown doesn't even play at all, then you've got real big problems on UAB's side. So I'm going to take Middle Tennessee State. If Brown plays, I think they're good for 21 to 24 points. For UAB, I think Middle Tennessee State's number will fall right around what they scored last week, 27 points. So give me MTSU, or they're not MTSU anymore, they're MTU.
MTU.
Covers has them at MTU. I would think MTSU, but whatever.
I know it is.
I know them as MTSU. So give me MTSU, pick them, and the over 44.5. All right, we've got the next one on the slate. All of these are going to be, these two games are going to be starting relatively at the same time. We'll start with the American Athletic Conference Championship, and I don't know if you guys know who's playing.
We'll probably hit it in the middle of this discussion, and we'll probably hit it at the end, too, I'm sure. So, yes.
Nevertheless, it is Memphis at UCF from Spectrum Stadium in Orlando, Florida. Game due to kick off 12:30 p.m. Pacific. UCF is 11-0. Memphis 8-4. Had to beat Houston to get into the West, win the West. And they did that pretty convincingly last week. I believe they won 52-31 or something like that. Nevertheless, this Memphis team is probably a little bit different than the Memphis team UCF played a few weeks ago, as is UCF, because obviously Mackenzie Milton is not playing this game. The difference in this game, and I don't know the weather forecast to be exact, but it's not going to pour down rain.
Oh, yeah.
It's not scheduled to pour down rain like it did.
The second half was brutal.
It was. But if you'll recall, last time these two teams played, I actually thought that Memphis would give UCF a loss, and they did every bit of that up until the last, I think, 4 minutes of the game when Milton scored. This is different, though. Heupel's got to go with Darryl Mack, who has played 2 games this year. I mean, you count basically, 1.5 games. He played the whole Eastern Carolina game where they won, I believe, 38-10. And then he played the second half of all the second half and most of the second quarter against University of South Florida, and I believe that game was 38-10 as well. The line currently is UCF as a 3-point favorite. That is down from 6 where it opened. The line total is 65. I'll save my thoughts, but my initial thoughts are I don't think they can get to 65 to get collectively, like they could last time.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Token, please. No, please.
I actually like the over in this spot. I believe even with Mackenzie Milton not playing due to injury, I believe they still will put up points. I think the spread's right on. I believe UCF wins by a field goal, right around the 37 to 34 kind of range, and they barely squeaked over.
Yeah, this is the hardest game of the week for me that I've tried to handicap all of them, and this is the one that I had the most problems with. Certainly, I don't really know what to say. As we talked about, and it's one of those things that we just don't know what the impact of Milton being out will be necessarily. As you said, Mac hasn't had a lot of time to say, to see what we're going to get. I realize his completion percentage has been pretty low this year when he's played. It's all rushing for the most part. It seems like it's becomes much more of a rushing type of offense. Not necessarily that's a bad thing per se. It may not be. But he's just a very, very different quarterback than Milton, as almost everybody else is. And, the dynamic, run pass is just not there. So, but does that mean, they can't beat, Memphis? I'm sure they can. So I just don't know. To me, it's likely a close game. I know the spread sort of shows that. I liked what Memphis did in the previous game, and I really feel like, as we talked about, they really should have won that one. I think the weather actually hurt them a lot down the stretch there. They certainly still couldn't close, and they made some bad defensive mishaps, but I thought that was a pretty big detriment. And we've seen from Memphis the rise of Patrick Taylor along with Darrell Henderson as a running back look extremely good the last couple of weeks. Henderson got knocked out of the game early a couple weeks ago, and Taylor came in and was great and ran for 170-plus yards in that one. So, they have all three of their running backs have combined for about 3,000 yards. It's really an unbelievably impressive rushing attack, and that's what UCF has done this year. They've struggled against some really good rushing teams. We've seen that multiple times from them. So I think all of that just bodes for this to be pretty close. The fact that they're at home certainly helps. I don't really have much of a thought here. If I had to really, really stretch, I guess I would take the points with Memphis getting whatever they are, 3.5, whatever it is. But I don't want it. I don't really want any of it, and I think it'll be a good game.
Yeah, fair enough. I actually think that as much as you're talking about Memphis's running backs being, what did you say, 3,000 yards total? They
combined for about 3,000 yards this year, yeah, just under.
I'm trying to find the Knights rushing statistics too, because I think they're pretty damn close to that as well.
Sure.
Greg McCrae leads them with 895. But collectively, you take out the low backs, but collectively the entire rushing game is 29-68 for UCF as well. I add Darryl Mack in that as well, because Darryl Mack's basically going to be a game manager in this spot. I think the combination of McCrae, Killins, McGowan, and Mack are going to want to take over this game, because they're going to want to play small ball. I feel bad for the receivers because, God damn it, I don't understand the point of do not disturb if the thing still comes through as a call.
It's interesting.
Yeah, fucking iPhone.
There's that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, this is what happens when D-Wald goes on the road. We have to have shit-shaped technology.
Yes, way to blame him. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to blame D-Wald for that. I think it's going to be an offensive. It's going to be offensively challenging for both teams. That being said, I still think UCF can cover the 3 because it's not much. I would have felt less confident about the original line of 6. I think that's about where UCF will finish, about a 6-point victor in that spot, and they'll win the AAC, and they'll be in a New Year's Six bowl, but not the ones that I think that they expected to be in the beginning of the year.
Nope.
I'm sure we'll talk about that later.
Can't wait.
No, you can't. All right, well, here's the virtual playoff elimination game, or maybe not, depending on how you feel about the playoff committee's viewpoints and thought processes. The SEC title game begins at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. on the East Coast, from the Mercedes-Benz Superdome that you want to go to so bad?
Yeah.
Alabama, number 1, versus number 5, Georgia. Alabama is a 14-point favorite right now. Current live line 63.5 on the total. 11-1 versus 12-0. Alabama. This Alabama team, in my opinion, has not been tested like previous Alabama teams in the past. So, initial thoughts are that's a lot of points to give to Georgia. No?
Yes.
It is.
That is correct.
That being said, whenever Alabama starts handing out big spreads, they have no problems covering them. I think the only thing Alabama has done that surprised me this year has been tied to Citadel at halftime. Well, I think we were all sitting here.
We were.
I think we were all sitting here watching that game. But other than that, Alabama's won the last 4 meetings. Georgia's defense is not the same Georgia defense that played Alabama in the title game last year. And my first 2 questions before you deep dive in the game is, can Alabama cover? And if they can't cover, and ultimately they lose, are they going to stay in the playoffs?
Absolutely. I think that's a resounding yes. I think they might be a 2 seed. I'm not sure they even fall that much. I really believe that. I think this love affair with Tua and offensively and watching this team be an offensive juggernaut versus that great defense we've seen for many years, and while they still have a very good defense, I think everyone's just fallen in love with this team. And they,
the thing is, if they lose and they fall to 3 and Notre Dame moves up to 2,
maybe.
Then we get Alabama, Notre Dame again.
I don't think that they'll fall to 3. I think they'll fall to 2 and they'll play Notre Dame. That would be my guess. I don't know.
I think they got to fall to 4, right? Georgia's got to go to 1. Clemson will be beating Pitt, and as much as their body of work, I've talked about Clemson, but their body of work is just as kind of as Alabama's this year. And if Georgia beats Alabama, so you talk about this love affair, I think Georgia's got to go to number 1. Not that really. I mean, the two playoff matchups are what, the Orange Bowl and the Cotton Bowl this year, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
I think one of them's the Cotton.
I think one of them's
the other one. Yeah, you could be right.
I think it's Orange.
Okay.
Nevertheless, I mean, it's not like okay. So if Georgia goes to Texas or if Georgia goes to Miami, Florida, it's not that far. Yeah, they're not going to travel.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think that matters at all.
So
they'll be going wherever. Yeah, that's not an issue at all with any of these teams. I don't think Notre Dame.
Notre Dame's got fans everywhere.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. All of these teams, I think, will travel. In droves. All right. Yeah, getting back to
break
the
game.
It down. This is great because we saw Georgia and losing to LSU a while back, and we had talked before even that Georgia was not this same team, that they've struggled, especially in their defensive line and stopping the run, which we had never seen before. And since then, they've corrected a lot of these issues. They've won every game by 17 points or more. They continue to get pressure on the quarterback, and they've been able to force a lot of really bad decisions and spots, and they've gotten a lot of free points, not only in getting great field position, but they're actually, and the field position thing is interesting. They're starting on average about 15 yards further than they were in the first 5 weeks of the season in these last 7. So it's been a big difference for them, and I think it's made it a little bit easier on offense. Than it was in earlier times. I still believe that we're not getting the exact type of quarterback, I would say, usage that I think would be ideal. I do think that Justin Fields is completely underutilized in this team, and I'm not trying to blame Kirby Smart necessarily for that, but I'm pretty confident that if Tua was playing the majority of last year versus just that at the end in that game, Alabama would have been a much better team. And I think that Fields would make Georgia a much better team. But as you said, many weeks ago, Aaron, we've already kind of made this bet, and we've already gone with Fromm. So to go completely away from that right now might make things a little bit hairy and might wreck the team chemistry. And
I think there's no way that Fields gives them a better chance to win right now than Fromm does.
I disagree completely. After watching Fields now play in these spots and games, there are no weaknesses. There are absolutely none. He throws the ball unbelievably well, and he's an incredibly good runner that has not even been given the chance to do so. I think he's a top tier quarterback. I think he'd be a top 5 or top 10 quarterback right now in college football. I'm that confident in Fields, and that's just an opinion. I don't actually know, but Fromm does not impress me. He has a quality arm. He makes the right decisions, but he does not stretch the field enough. He doesn't take enough risk, and I don't like. Yeah, it's gonna win a lot of games against mid-tier SEC teams, but it's just not gonna win games like this. So we'll see how much these guys get utilized and what the difference is. But again, I think Georgia, for them to have a chance in this game, their defensive backs need to keep playing well. Their two guys, Baker and Stokes, have thrived in single coverage on the second half of this season, which has been primarily one of the reasons their defense has improved. So I will take Georgia plus the 14 or 13.5 or wherever anybody's got right now. If I had to lean here, I think the under would be the spot. I'm not going to touch the total, but it does seem a smidge high for these two teams that actually do have pretty high quality defenses. But I'll be on Georgia plus 14.
Yeah, that was my initial thought too. Was you got two teams that are giving up respectively, I believe, 13 points for Alabama, and I believe, 17 points for Georgia. And while they're both scoring over 40, 63.5 is really high. What do you think, Toke?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a play on the under in this one, and my play for the spread is Alabama minus the points. I think they cruise to a easy victory, kind of like similar to that they did to LSU. But Georgia does score in this contest. Yeah, something like 28-7 or something around there.
Token, where do you stand in the quarterback situation with Georgia? I'm curious to hear your take on it.
He thinks they should do 2 quarterbacks. That's always his philosophy.
That's actually true. I mean, I think that would keep both defenses on their toes, and I mean, then you could create some mayhem. I mean, especially if you have a dual threat quarterback that can run the ball or even be like a wide receiver.
Fair enough.
I just question. Okay, so if you believe that Fields is such a great quarterback, why aren't they utilizing him in even like running packages or anything? I mean, they are, but very, very, very rarely.
It's rare. I think it's a Kirby Smart and his coaching, the ideals and what he values. I don't think he wants to be this guy to do the whole two quarterback thing, and he's going to take the safe route and the route of a guy that just got you to the playoffs last year.
Should have won you the game too.
Yeah, I think that's the route he's taking.
Won. Yeah, however you want
to
call it. But
I think similar to Clemson. I mean, we saw Clemson do it this year where they could have stayed with Bryant, could have very well maybe been 12-0 still, but they went with who I believe then and who I believe now is the better quarterback and the better guy for the job. So,
and I think also Bryant's downfall was getting whitewashed by Alabama last year. They probably said, "Hey, look, if we got to go play in a national title game this year, it's going to be against Alabama or the first playoff game." Sure. And I don't think Kelly Bryant can do it. I'm not sure that Trevor Lawrence can, but there's only one way to find out.
Right. No, but
I think if Trevor Lawrence doesn't let the moment get bigger than it should be, he could beat Alabama.
No, I agree completely.
Cool. So I don't know. Jake Fromm, to me, had Alabama on the ropes, and I don't know. I think I'm not 100% sure on this theory, but I think Georgia's going to win.
Wow,
I really do.
Wow, that is a strong pick, bold pick.
And I think if Georgia doesn't win, they're losing by losing by a field goal or less.
Yeah, close.
I think they're going to lead in this game, and I think they're going to win. And that's what leads me to believe that I don't know how far Alabama should fall. Which, if anybody you ask, they're undoubtedly in the playoff, no matter what.
Sure.
So the question becomes is, how much of importance is this SEC title to Nick Saban? Because he didn't care about one last year and won a national fucking title. I can't say he didn't care about it. He didn't play for one last year and won a national title.
Oh, he wanted to be there for sure, of course.
Well, of course, but you didn't win the right games. Right. It just, to me, it seems like Georgia's... Because you could argue that Georgia, even losing this game by 3, shouldn't be knocked out. But they're gonna.
I agree.
I mean, true. common opponent was LSU. They did get beat pretty handedly by LSU. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, I'm looking at the Crimson Tide schedule. I mean, you want to keep this team in, and yes, they've rolled every single team they've played. But, I mean, they've given up 31 points to Arkansas. They've given up 21 points to Tennessee. Mm. They've I know this doesn't sound crazy, but Texas A&M, they were relatively in a game there. I don't see a quality win. And you can say, oh, SEC. The SEC is not quality this year, other than these 2 teams that are meeting. Maybe LSU in the beginning of the year.
I mean,
they're still a good team. Yeah. Okay, so I'll give them LSU, and they shut them out, and that's a huge...
I think Florida's been above average, too. I think we should give them...
Well, they didn't play them this year.
No, you were just... harping on the SEC.
Still 12 teams in the SEC. But I'm tired of Joe Kentucky fan. Well, Kentucky may be wrong. I'm tired of Joe Arkansas fan going, hey, SEC football. I'm like, you guys ain't been relevant in 12 fucking years. Darren McFadden ain't coming through that door anymore.
Yeah, no, there's some bad teams.
To me, the SEC may not be any better than the Big Ten this year.
No, I agree. The Big Ten's very strong. Yep. Oh, you won't hear an argument from me there. I think the Big Ten is very good.
So I think if Alabama, is there a scenario or a margin of defeat that gets Alabama out of here? They get beat by 2 touchdowns. I mean, I don't know.
I don't think so.
3 touchdowns?
I don't.
4 touchdowns?
Wow. Well, that's,
5 touchdowns?
You better get some big-time injuries
6 touchdowns?
on the offensive side for that to happen.
6 touchdowns and a field goal?
Ooh.
I mean, there's got to be a margin that says we can't put these
There might be.
in.
No, there's probably an insane margin, but again, we have to remember they only have 1 loss. And do you think they're a worse team than Oklahoma and Ohio State? That's hard to believe.
No, the question is, do you think they're a more sexier team on draw, television-wise, than Ohio State and Oklahoma? And maybe not.
That I don't know.
Having Urban Meyer in the playoffs?
Yeah, I don't know.
Having Oklahoma in the playoffs with Kyler Murray?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know about that. Yep. That's a good point. I have no idea.
I think we all agree Notre Dame doesn't belong, but they don't play today. Or they don't play in conference weekend.
It's really unfortunate.
So we don't have a choice. They're in. And then Clemson gets to play Pittsburgh, which anything could happen, but I don't think it's gonna. We'll talk about that later, but I just think there's got to be a margin of defeat that keeps them out, and I think it's 2 touchdowns plus.
Okay. I don't agree. I hope you're right. I think it'd be fun.
Well, the thing is, I don't want Oklahoma or Ohio State in because I hope they both lose. Because then if UCF wins by
you want
50 points,
beyond complete chaos to have a chance.
Well, yeah. In my world, I want Georgia, Oklahoma, and Ohio State to all lose.
Yes.
But the problem is they'll put Michigan in because Michigan's ranked higher than UCF right now.
I hope not. I hope they wouldn't do that. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think they would, but I mean, I need complete chaos.
You need total.
To have a shot.
Yes.
For them to go,
should we just do this? Should we just do this?
And the problem is, now, with Mac, no disrespect to Mac, but they would get their doors blown in by Alabama. With Milton, I'd say they'd probably be within 10.
Ooh.
With Mac, I'd say they might be within 80.
I don't agree with the 10, but okay, yes. It's
Well, you know what? You could not agree. That's why they play the football games. Or don't play, I guess, in their
I
world.
won't be doing that, yeah.
Nevertheless, I think I'm taking Georgia money line.
Wow.
This
Okay. Georgia money line. I like that. What's that number? Are we getting like 5-1 or something? I hope.
I would imagine you're getting more than that on. Let's see, money line.
Yeah, I got it.
400. You're only getting 400 in this one. Well, 475 at the win.
Okay.
The consensus all around is about 400.
That's light.
I would have thought with 2 touchdowns you'd be getting more than that.
That is light.
Yeah,
that's very light.
So maybe I sprinkle some on the money line, still take the 14 points. Or 13.5, as you were saying, that they have.
Yeah, I just didn't see any 14s, but I feel like if you can get 14 in this one, that is excellent.
You can always buy it for 10 cents.
You could, yes, but even 13.5, I'm with you. I think
this line opened up at 10.5, and it's just being bought.
No, that's wrong. That's wrong line movement, in my opinion. Yeah, I agree.
Or maybe it's not. Nick Saban's funny man. Never know. Nevertheless, I'll take Georgia money line. I'll take the 13.5 points, but I'll sprinkle a little bit on the 4-1 money line. Maybe I'll go over the win today and grab that 475.
Yeah, that's good
if it's there. All right, let's see. So we've got where else we have Fresno and Boise. That's the next on this docket of the games I see. It's starting at 4:45 Pacific. Boise and Fresno just played not too long ago. Boise came back from a 17-0 deficit or 17-3 deficit and beat the Bulldogs at home, which I want to read an interesting stat to you guys at home for the Boise State Broncos. And, brace yourself because this is crazy. So since 2000, Boise State is 114-7 at home on the Smurf turf.
Strong.
Very
strong.
I don't think any other FBS school. Well, it says tops in the FBS school, but I don't think any FBS school was within striking distance of that. I mean, that includes Alabama.
No, I wouldn't think so. That's
before pre-Saban, they weren't very good.
Yeah.
But that's impressive. I don't care. It threw 2 different regimes too. Nevertheless, they are a 2.5-point favorite right now. Total 53 for all the marbles. 10-2 versus 10-2. Boise is 5-1 at home, which matters in this spot because it is on the Smurf turf. Token Tony, since you look like a Smurf, we'll let you start.
Thanks for the pick-me-up, Eddie.
Yeah,
you're very welcome.
Give me the Smurfs on this one. I think they cover. They win this game marginally close by a field goal. And I like the under in the spot. I think they keep it almost to the total, but just fall short of it. 27-24, something around there.
This might be the most competitive game of all the title games here. I watched the previous time these two teams played, and it was an excellent back and forth affair in the second half after Fresno got out to that big lead and then Boise came back. I mean, both of these teams are just really, really good. They're good on both sides of the ball. They're really well coached. They're great teams. These are, a classic example. We've talked about Group of Five versus Power Five and the lack of respect. I mean, these two teams could compete, I think, in any conference. I know with the majority of teams in those conferences, they're that good. So I'm looking forward to it personally in that sense. But I'm with you guys. I think it'll be much more of a grind kind of game, same type of thing that we saw before. I have already made a wager on this one, so I actually got it right before I came in today. And I'm on the under 53 here, and I like it for a variety of reasons. First one is it's supposed to be pretty cold and a little bit windy. Might have some other weather coming in, but I just like the cold, windy aspect of it, and both of these teams like to run the ball and are successful running the ball. For the most part, but they now face really strong defenses. Both rush defenses are in the top 20, and they both give up about 3.5 yards per carry, and it's I think it's going to be tough sledding on both sides, and then to counteract that and to try to have to throw the ball in tough third downs is just going to be difficult. So I think this will be a back and forth and low scoring. I'm not really quite sure who's going to win the game. I thought this 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I still believe that Fresno is actually the better team. So I guess I'll lean on Fresno plus the 2.5 here. But I don't really want to bet on it. I just actually think they're better. Does that really matter? No, I guess not. But the bet for me is the under 53.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the total in this game as well because both these teams can get offensively juggernauty and both these teams can be susceptible to the weather that you're speaking of. I do agree with you on one thing, however, that Fresno State's the better team overall. The question is traveling to Boise, having to play in a hostile environment. That's got to get tough. But as Tedford said, it's not new. We know what to expect. We know how to go play a great football team in a place where no one wants us to win. And they pretty much did that for almost 3 quarters last week, or 2 weeks ago. Was it 2 weeks ago? 2 or 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, when they played each other.
November 9th, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so a couple weeks ago, about 20 days ago. And I think they will complete it. I think they will win this game. I think they will be Mountain West champions, and I think they'll go into Boise and beat them, and make them now 114-8 on the Smurf turf. Let me see if I can pull up. Oh, I already exited out of the window, but I'll see if I can pull up a money line in that spot. But they got that guy Keyshawn Johnson. Is that his kid?
No, it's unrelated.
I was gonna say, I was like, whoa.
He's really good.
But he's broken Devontae Adams' school record, and Devontae Adams is no slouch. So give me Fresno State to win this game, and if they can get UCF to lose, probably set themselves up with a New Year's Six Bowl.
You think there'll be that much movement?
I don't, because I think that even if UCF loses, they should still be.
I would think so. Yeah.
They should still be.
I would hope.
But I mean,
that'd be a shock to me. At least.
The playoff committee sets up these bowls, and they really haven't given UCF. Well, they've given UCF love, but maybe they'll sit here and go, "Well, you lost," and your draw, Fresno State's draw, might be in the Fiesta Bowl because they may be looking for somebody to be in the Fiesta Bowl, and who are you going to put in? UCF have to come across the country, or are you going to put in Fresno State? Doesn't go very far. Remember, it's still about getting butts in the seats and dollars and sponsorship dollars.
True, but UCF has I think it's a pretty large following from what I understand. And
I'll be there if they go to Fiesta Bowl.
Fresno is a little light. That's part of the issue with Fresno. That's really kind of small market.
All right, well, how about if Boise wins? Do you think they...
Yeah, that could be, yeah. That's a better option for me.
I still think...
No, I think UCF would be fine.
I still think it's hard to beat a team twice in a year. We talked about that. And Fresno State knows how to beat them. They pretty much did it, like I said, for 2.5 quarters 3 weeks ago.
True.
So, I mean, I think that will be a fun game to watch. So I guess I will take Fresno money line and a little bit on the 2.5. Hopefully, maybe that gets pushed back up to 3. All right, let's move into. We got 2 games that start at 5 p.m. Pacific. One probably. Well, I don't know if that's necessarily the right thing. I say one probably maybe more closer than the other, but both games have relatively large spreads. Let's start with Northwestern and Ohio. Actually, no. Let's start with Clemson and Pittsburgh. That's probably the lesser of the 2 with eyeballs on it, I think, at this point. Clemson is a 27.5 point favorite in the title game, which will be played pretty much in their backyard in North Carolina at AT&T Stadium. Not AT&T Stadium. What is that? Bank of America Stadium, where the Panthers play. Total is 52.5. So the line has gone up. The total has gone down each 3 points. Can either of you guys see Pitt competing in this?
I can see them keeping it reasonably close. I like Pitt plus the points in this contest. I believe they give Clemson a little trouble in the beginning of the game, and then Clemson finally finds a few spots where they can produce points. But I like the over as well, too. I'm surprised it moved down 3 points. I think Clemson wins this game like 35-20, something around there.
I think this is the toughest matchup that Pittsburgh could face. Probably against any team in the country. I think this is the worst spot they could be in, really. Clemson is, I think, still playing with a chip on their shoulder, and I think it even got elongated here after the South Carolina game, where they got some pushback from boosters and a few other fans that were not happy with giving up that many points and that many yards to South Carolina, and just didn't like what had happened in this game. And they won the game by 20-plus points, and they're undefeated. And they got some blowback, and it was very apparent that Dabo made note of it and has followed along and is not happy with what's going on. And I just think that Clemson just seems so excitably crazy with what's going on. I mean, they're just putting up massive points on people on a weekly basis, and this is it's a championship game, I guess technically, but I don't see this stopping here. I mean, these are subpar teams. They keep playing compared to themselves, and until they get to the playoff, I can't see this not being more of a rout. They lead the NCAA by a lot now in yards per rush on defense, only allowing 2.2 in a conference that actually traditionally runs the ball well, too, this is not a nothing conference here of running backs. So very impressed there. I'm trying to figure out how Pitt can score, and I can't figure it out. Their issue on defense has been stopping the run as well. They've got a couple of good pass rushers, but they just don't really stop the run all that well. They're 80th in rushing defense. I have no idea how they can even do anything here. So I haven't really betted. I know it all sounds like so pro Clemson, but do we really want to be laying, as you said, almost 4 touchdowns in a game? Well, not really. I like to bet underdogs for the most part and be a contrarian. But for this one, my lean here is on Clemson, laying 27.5. As crazy as that sounds, I just can't see Pitt being in this game.
Yeah, the last time these two teams did meet, Pittsburgh did beat Clemson. I think, if you remember that. But I will say this with great certainty. I don't think Nathan Peterman is walking through that door.
No.
Nor is James Conner either. So
that's true.
Nathan Peterman last game that they played 308 yards and 5 touchdowns.
Ooh.
He had more touchdowns in that game than I think he's had in his NFL career.
Whole career, yeah. Definitely.
And he only completed 58% of his passes in that game too.
Wow.
Connor 132 yards and 2 touchdowns. So nevertheless, that was against Deshaun Watson and Wayne Gallman and Mike Williams.
Yep.
But nevertheless, I think you're right about everything you just said. However, in my heart, if Pittsburgh could beat Clemson, I actually believe that would put UCF in the playoff. Common opponent.
That would be cool.
Pittsburgh lost to UCF by 32 points.
It's true. They weren't really ever in that game.
No, they weren't. From snap to snap, they were never in that game.
It's true.
It's not going to happen. I understand that.
That would be awesome.
How awesome would that be?
It would be great. I would love it.
Georgia loses.
I would
Clemson
like it
loses.
too, yeah.
OU loses.
Let's see a shakeup. Let's see something happen.
Let's have fun with it. Nevertheless, you're right. Pittsburgh's not going to be in this game with Clemson as far as beating them. But you're right. Laying 4 touchdowns, that is not something I like to be too much a part of. The atmosphere will be probably like a Clemson home game, I would imagine. Though Pittsburgh can probably bring a few people down to Charlotte, North Carolina. I don't know. What's the distance here while I'm talking from Clemson to Charlotte?
I think there's
couple hours?
some, yeah. I think Clemson's more in the southern to southwest part of the state, or I'm sorry, southwest part of the state. It's away from the ocean. So yeah, I think there's some distance. Obviously, it's a small state, but
it's less than Pittsburgh, I would imagine, though, right? Yeah. And I would say in this spot it bodes well for a teaser to take Pittsburgh up to 34.5 and take the over/under down to 45. I think they can cover 34 points. I think they will get beat by about 24 points in this game. So maybe not even touching the teaser, but I think Pittsburgh can keep it relatively close. The problem is that a lot of the money has been going in on Pittsburgh, and the line has continued to go up. Or a lot of action has, at least. I don't know about the money.
Right.
A lot of action has continued to go in on Pittsburgh, and the line is only going up from there. So, with all that being said, I think I will just probably play it safe and do a 7-point teaser. Pittsburgh 34.5, over 45.
I think that's the safe play.
I think Clemson could get 45 by themselves.
Yes, I agree.
I'd say somewhere around the lines of... I'm going to say somewhere around the lines of 35 to 17, Clemson. So that's where I'm standing at this point with that. So, all right, let's move over to Ohio State and Northwestern. This one, everybody thinks is a bloodbath as well. However, the line's only Ohio State minus 14. We talked about this as far as the fan perspective. Northwestern probably isn't going to travel that well as far as showing up and a presence in the drum.
It is a short drive, though, to Indianapolis. Let that be said. So it's not that bad. But, yes, they still won't travel that much.
Over under 61. You've got Ohio State coming off the trouncing of that school up north. That was 62 points. Wow. Michigan, I don't think they gave up 62 points all season.
No. It was incredible.
But they're facing Northwestern, who probably is in a dogfight in this one. Probably is vastly undermanned talent-wise. But we've been saying it all year, the Fighting Fitzgeralds. Are we going to continue saying the Fighting Fitzgeralds, Tony, or is this just too much for the Wildcats?
Yeah, this has been one that's been tough for me because this is my second of the future bets that are going to finish here.
It's true. I forgot you in the beginning. You talked about Ohio State.
Yeah, I have Ohio State to win the conference and to win the national championship. And
what are the odds on those?
So the conference is plus 157, about a little more than 1.5 to 1, and then the national championship is plus 825. So I've written off the 825. I don't think they can really get. I mean, there's of course if things fall their way, yes, but it's unlikely. So that's fine. But they're both for very large money, at least for me. So
Northwestern's got to be a nice dog here for a hedge, right?
It is. I have actually laid it off just because I'm a fan of Northwestern. Having grown up right close by, and I like the team. So I almost had to hedge it off just because I didn't want to have to be in a weird. You
just want to
spot.
show all your friends back home. I bet Northwestern to win the Big Ten.
There is a little bit of that.
Read it and weep.
Yes, because if you get plus 500 on a team and they win, you can look really cool. But no, I did hedge it off. So we do have some guaranteed profit, but certainly the big profit will be still on Ohio State. And the problem is, I think it's a really good matchup for them. As we've talked about, I think in previous weeks, the matchups that are great for Ohio State are when they face non-dynamic type of offenses where they're relatively one-dimensional and they don't have to worry about getting hit in different sides and different parts, and they can actually withstand and focus on something on defense. And then on the flip side, they've been able to combat really good defenses the last few weeks, and not only utilize the quarterback and arm and 3 or 4 really dynamic receivers, but they're running the ball a lot better now. So that's been probably the biggest difference in why they were able to rout Michigan. So I do like the matchup here. The problem is Northwestern doesn't really get blown out of games. It's so weird. Like they're just in every game, and as you said, the Fighting Fitzgeralds, they just hang around. You don't really know how it happens, but it just happens. So that's kind of weird. I don't really know what to expect of that. Ohio State has a history of routing teams in these games. The Michigan game was not terribly strange if you look at it from a historical perspective. When teams doubt Ohio State, they tend to do really well. Urban Meyer is perfect. I believe he's 8 or 9-0 as an underdog at Ohio State. It's just they do really well when doubted. Obviously now is a little bit different.
There's not an underdog today.
Yeah, not an underdog today. And I know I'm saying a lot of different things and going back and forth. I can't really think clearly for this game, just having all these weird future bets and liking Northwestern. But if I had to take a side here, I bet on Northwestern plus 14. I think it's too many points. Ohio State is while obviously a much more talented team, and there's no question there. They have done this all season long, where they have been favorites, like a team type of favorite, and they just don't win big, and they don't hammer down a team when they can. And to just assume that it's going to happen now because they were able to crush Michigan, I don't think that's a good assumption. I think we can look at 6 or 7 other games this year where they have not laid the hammer down when they can, and Northwestern's a team that doesn't go away. So I would be on the side of Northwestern plus 14.
Really, that's surprising. I mean, considering you're like, what the Buckeyes have to do to get into this playoff is not cover this spread.
That's true.
They would almost have to win by 30 plus.
I agree, but that's hard to do against this team.
You're right. No, you're right. I mean, Northwestern has been a team that is in every game, whether they should or they shouldn't be. That's always the question. I mean, Rutgers?
True. And yet beating Michigan by, 10 at the break, when they played Michigan. It's so weird. So you're right. You're right.
I think, I'll formulate my thought while I let Token Tony go ahead here.
Toke.
We lose Token?
He gone.
What?
Oh, there he is.
Oh, he woke up.
I like Northwestern in the spot, plus the points for sure. I think the Fighting Fitzgeralds keep it marginally close. And the total, I don't really have a take on the total, but I'd probably take the over if I did.
What is the total in this one?
61.
61.
Yeah.
Oof. I'm going to have to fade you, boys. I think Ohio State is the superior team, and I think they've spent the whole season being in games they shouldn't have. I think that final wake-up call was Maryland. I mean, that was embarrassing. But even though they won, that was embarrassing football. You're right. Northwestern is in a lot of games. I'm not saying they won't be in this game at any point. I think they will probably open up pretty close to them. But eventually I see Ohio State something like 52-20 in this spot. I think they're just going to kill them. They're going to have to make as strong a case as possible if they think they're getting into this playoff. Because they're, number 6 right now?
Yeah, they're right behind Oklahoma.
Yeah, and the thing is, Oklahoma is in more of a dogfight, in my opinion, than Ohio State would be in this spot. But the question is if Ohio State wins by 30-plus points and Oklahoma wins by 3, I mean, we've talked about all the conference championship games. Let's start talking about the what-ifs, because that's where we're going here.
Spot.
I think
I think Oklahoma will get in then.
I think the ultimate thing is we don't know, because the playoff committee can do whatever the hell they want.
It's true. They can.
I mean, like I said, Georgia could lose by 3 here and not move. They could go into 4.
Right.
Yeah.
That's possible. It's possible.
Or Georgia could lose by 1 in triple overtime or whatever, and they could say, look, Georgia gives the best competition.
But then you have to repeat that game, though. Do they really want to do that? Because you keep Alabama at 1.
Well, if it's exciting, if they have a 3 overtime 1-point loss and then they have the national championship last year, people will want those. But that's the thing. Now you're putting a 2-loss SEC team in over 1-loss Big Ten, 1-loss Big 12. And that's the thing. It's like, okay, so at what point because the thing is, I'm rooting for 2 things: utter chaos for obvious reasons.
Yes,
for obvious reasons. And also I'm rooting for utter chaos and for the playoff committee to fuck shit up, because if they leave out the Pac-12, which they're going to, if they leave out the Big 12, which is possible, and if they leave out the Big Ten, which is possible, I think the Power 5 conferences getting shut out of these playoffs is the only way we're going to get expansion.
Yeah.
Well,
I agree with that statement.
Pac-12 should be left out.
I said that. I said the Pac-12 will be left out, which this year they should be.
Yeah.
But there's a chance that the Big Ten and the Big 12 could get left out if Georgia beats Alabama.
I think if Clemson wasn't undefeated, you should leave out the ACC, too. That conference has been a train wreck this year.
Okay, so then you could do that, too. And if you put in UCF, because they are undefeated for 2 straight years, and if Alabama or if Clemson did lose a game, you could put 2 SECs, a G5, and an independent in. You really think 4 Power 5 conferences are going to be okay with that?
No.
Exactly.
No.
Oh, my God. Could you imagine? Georgia loses, Ohio State loses, Oklahoma loses. We got 2 SEC. We got 1 SEC team, an ACC team, an independent, and a G5 in the playoffs.
Wow.
Jeez, that'd be pretty awesome, though.
It would be, but I'm saying you've got to think that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but last year the Big Ten was left out, the Pac-12 was left out, and that's it of the Power 5. Yeah, because you had ACC, SEC, and Big 12.
Big 12.
But every year that Notre Dame's going to be good, they're getting in. If they go 1 loss or less, they're getting in every year.
I don't know about the 1 loss scenario.
Most of the time.
If they lose to a good USC team, or if they lose to, depending on how they're going to start scheduling.
Not necessarily.
If they'd have lost to Georgia last year,
and it probably depends when they lose to and what other teams are on the slate too.
Well, see, that's not fair. Why does it depend on when Notre Dame loses, but not when Alabama loses? If Notre Dame lost to a good USC team, if and when USC becomes good again, they're always the last game of the year, or second to last usually.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if USC was a playoff team and Notre Dame was a 12-1 team, in that sort of year they should be in. I don't know. Anyways,
Maybe.
but my point being is that it's not fair to say, well, when Notre Dame loses, but when Alabama loses.
Well, I don't think that's Token's point. I don't think he's trying to actually say that it maybe necessarily matters. It's just that it weighs on the minds of people that are making these decisions. They think about what has happened recently.
I'm
more
aware
than
of
anything
that.
else.
Well, Alabama losing by 2+ touchdowns today would be in the minds. In the minds of the playoff committee.
It would be, that's for sure.
And they'd still get it.
They would.
And that's the thing. They would still get in being a 2-touchdown loser, which, correct me if I'm wrong, find me another team in the playoff that has lost their game by 2 touchdowns. Other than Michigan. Oh, yeah, Ohio State. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I...
Yeah.
But they've lost to a fellow playoff team, though.
Right. They've lost to 2 playoff teams.
Yeah, that would be... Yeah.
Well, if Ohio State got in the playoff, Michigan will have lost to 2 playoff teams this year.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Because Notre Dame in the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I wonder what Michigan's
But what if
motivation
Notre
level
Dame would have lost to Michigan in the beginning of the year and ran the table? Would they still be in the playoffs?
It's very hard to say. I would hope not, but that would be hard to say.
Because then Michigan's 1 loss would have been to Ohio State. They would still be in playoff contention without playing for their Big Ten title game.
Let's not do that.
Like Alabama did, yeah.
Well, what do you think the playoff committee does? They sit there for longer than 5 minutes and go Bama, Clemson, Notre Dame, and that 4. Well, I think they're going to do that this week because if Alabama wins, the first 3 are easy.
Right.
Yeah.
So the fourth matchup's going to take more than 5 seconds to figure out.
It's going to take a long time.
Yeah.
Assuming if like all these teams win, it's going to take a long time.
So I'm saying now if all these teams win, say Oklahoma wins by 3 touchdowns, Ohio State wins by 3 touchdowns, but Alabama loses.
Yeah, it'll be tough. I don't see how you move anybody up. I don't know. I think you'd have to keep Georgia, and Alabama's not going anywhere. So.
Well, Georgia's going to at least 2 if they beat Alabama. At least.
Yeah.
Clemson maybe.
I would say Clemson would probably go up to 1. Yeah. Bama would be 4. Georgia would be 2, and Notre Dame 3.
I'm not sure that Alabama's going to move to 4. I think Notre Dame would be the one that would move down. Would be my guess, but I'm not sure.
Just because they didn't play?
Yeah, they didn't play, and it's they got unlucky. They tried to schedule some difficult games. I'm not blaming them for that, but they got unlucky. They had a lot of teams that were down this year. They don't actually have a lot of high quality wins.
Yeah, I mean Florida State was down, Stanford was down, USC was down, but those are common not the Florida State, but those are common teams they play every year.
I understand, but I don't care. I mean, the fact is that that's what happened this year, is that these were not great teams, and we saw Notre Dame struggle in a lot of games. They even struggled in the USC game. They struggled against Vanderbilt. They struggled against Pitt. They struggled against Ball State.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean, this is not a great team, and I'm not sure the committee necessarily disagrees with that. I think there's a lot of people on that committee, if they're good football people, that don't want them, but they know they don't have a choice, but they actually don't think they're that good. If we talked to Barry Alvarez, I think he would absolutely say that Notre Dame's not a top 4 team.
Well, I think they do have that choice. They're leaving another undefeated team out because of the teams they play.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. No, they're more comparable than people think. This UCF Notre Dame thing. If you look at the schedule, they're really, yes, Notre Dame has played a hard schedule, no question. But
could you see any scenario that Notre Dame gets booted from this whole thing?
It depends on the politics. I don't know the politics like other people do, like what is actually going on behind these closed doors. But
they've always been very clear they want to find the 4 best teams that make for the best matchups.
Right.
Which that's the caveat.
It's interesting.
What makes for the best matchups? Ohio State. I mean, I'll tell you, for TV ratings, for TV dollars, Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, and Oklahoma or Georgia make for the best matchups.
Oh, that'd be great, of course.
And Notre Dame,
absolutely. Yeah.
Notre Dame only makes for the best matchups for their fans.
They have a lot of them.
Yeah,
I'm aware they have a lot of them. But like the Yankees are good TV for their fans. They also draw for away teams who want to see the Yankees.
Right.
But the reason they draw for a lot of away teams, same with the Red Sox, is because a lot of their fans live across the country.
Yeah.
It's not like the casual Angels fan is going, oh, the Yankees are in town.
Right.
Because you know what? They also jack the ticket prices up, too.
Yeah.
But the casual,
absolutely,
the diehard Yankee fan who lives in Anaheim is going, oh, the Yankees are in town. Let's go.
Right.
I mean, I witnessed it firsthand, the Rays. Whenever the Yankees or Red Sox came into town, they sold out the stadium. Then when everybody else came in, Kansas City came into town, they could barely get 10,000 fans. But the people who sold out the stadium weren't Rays fans coming to see the Red Sox Yankees.
Right.
They were Sox or Yankees fans coming to fill up the stadium. So I think Notre Dame, while they may believe there's some big time matchup, I think that's only in their own fans' head.
Well, TV speaks a little bit too. I mean, that the deal with ESPN, Disney, ABC is really big.
But not with Notre Dame. They have a deal with NBC.
No, it's ABC now. They have a deal with Disney. Yeah, the NBC deal is they only play like one game on NBC or 1 or 2. It's all ABC now.
Are you sure?
Yes.
I'm yes. I don't know. Notre Dame signed a 20-year deal with NBC football.
Yeah, but they're on the bigger one, I think, and the games that they made a lot off of is this new ABC deal where they, well, not ABC, but I mean it's Disney.
Right.
That, I think, is the one. The NBC one was signed a while ago. Was it 20 years? Yeah, that was a while ago. That's not even compared to some of the SEC and Big 12 stuff. It's not like ridiculously lucrative. I think the newest one that they signed with Disney is massive. But I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I remember when it ended up happening.
I don't see this ABC deal anywhere. ABC deal or Disney deal anywhere.
Okay.
All I'm looking at right now is in 2014 they signed a 15-year contract to extend Notre Dame football games on NBC. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm saying you're incorrect, sir. on an average of $15 million a year, NBC has held TV rights since '91.
All right, I'll
let you do some crack research.
I'll find it. Yeah, that's fine. But either way, I think it's not 100% guarantee Notre Dame would be in, but
I'm just curious. Token was
likely.
Is there a scenario you can see that Notre Dame, without playing today, gets left out of the playoff?
If Oklahoma destroys Texas, if Georgia beats Alabama, if maybe Ohio State just wallops Northwestern, I could see a case for them being left out, but it's still probably very unlikely to happen.
Because they don't get that 13th game like everybody else does.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys both talked about prisoner of the moment kind of stuff. Well, I mean, the moment is Oklahoma running, trouncing Texas, Ohio State trouncing Northwestern, and maybe even Georgia winning.
Mm-hmm.
I think Georgia winning would be the only spot where they would even have a discussion of Notre Dame not being in. But But here's another discussion of, I would love to see all of that happen. Notre Dame stay in at number 4, Oklahoma and Ohio State be shut out, and the guy to come on, whoever their committee spokesman is, to say, how can you leave an undefeated team out of the playoff? Because I think UCF fans will be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Because they'll say the only reason we left Notre Dame in is because they're undefeated. And
what about us? Yeah.
Well, I think they would lose all credibility. But the thing is who gives a shit what their they don't care what their credibility is. They get to make the decision, and we all get to discuss it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just saying, if you take Notre Dame out for any reason at all and say that, or leave them in because you're saying, how do we leave an undefeated team out of the playoff? You're really, like I said, you're really just kind of destroying all logical playoff everything for college football.
Yeah.
Because I've already said this is the only sport where the champion isn't determined by how you perform on the field.
Yeah. I believe if what happens, like Georgia beating Alabama and Oklahoma and Ohio State just destroying their opponents, I believe, based on strength of schedule, Notre Dame should be left out.
Well, and Tony's shaking his head too, yeah.
I agree, yeah, no, there's no question.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And you know what? They probably should be left out based on, because apparently strength of schedule is another thing that everybody just preaches as their catalyst, because obviously UCF doesn't have it. But if Notre Dame doesn't have it, how does Notre Dame
actually
get this
I think UCF has a very comparable strength of schedule to Notre Dame this season, if not even arguably worse.
The thing is the strength of schedule is a concept that comes out in the beginning of the season. It's not adjusted for how teams finish.
Yeah. Or teams at a certain point of the time.
Right. Ohio State at the time they played TCU was a lot higher ranked than now at the end of the year. TCU is 6-6. And at the this website I'm looking at now, teamrankings.com, has their strength of schedule, their highest ranked strength of schedule, their lowest ranked, and then their last week's strength of schedule. LSU has the toughest strength of schedule to start the year and also to finish the year. I'm just trying to find UCF on here. Central Florida, at the start of the year, or their highest, at the start of the year, they were 72nd. At their highest point, they were 23rd. And last week, they were 56th. So,
okay.
they're talking about 110th ranked. They opened up the year at 72nd. Their lowest, they got to as low as 126th, as high as 23, and the last week they were 56th. 56 isn't a terrible strength of schedule. It's...
No. It's better than probably some of the SECs, for sure.
I'm trying to find Notre Dame on here. Notre Dame started the year 34th, got as high as 9. Last week they were 31st.
I don't agree with that.
Well, it all depends on what goes into that, too. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows what's determined by that?
Calculated, yeah.
And then they have this FPI with ESPN. It could be making shit up. Who knows?
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
I can use statistics to set up anything I want.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think the eye test is really what matters when we come down to it. If we've watched these teams play a lot of games, to me, it's pretty obvious that Notre Dame is not nearly as good as these other top-tier teams that we've mentioned. Just, taking away strength of schedule, taking away everything else, but just watching them against, reasonable opponents. Obviously, you can't really gather a lot when you're playing an FCS team or something like that, but this is, to me, a significant downgrade to these other top teams. I don't know where I'd have them ranked. If I had my own rankings, they'd probably be somewhere in the 10 to 15 range, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I don't know. It'd be hard to say.
Don't turn your mic on. But, if you look at expansion, I've always called for 12. I think 16 is too many, 8's not enough, whether you agree with me or not. But
I don't agree with you on that, but yeah.
So say you go to 8. You have your 5 conferences, which would be Bama, Clemson, Oklahoma, Ohio State, and as it stands right now, it'd be the winner of Washington and Utah. which both are 17 and where's Washington at? Oh, well, Washington is 11th in the CFP rankings. So, and then your next best, obviously this would not be depending on the games that happen today, your next best two teams who would be in are Georgia and Michigan. Or, excuse me, Georgia and Notre Dame. Or Michigan. So, between Notre Dame, Georgia, and Michigan, one of those teams would get left out of an 8-team playoff. Because, like I said, you'd have Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Pac-12 winner, and then you would have Notre Dame, Georgia, Michigan, Florida, or LSU, which Florida and LSU at 3 losses aren't really going to get a look. But I would assume an undefeated Notre Dame would get in, so then do you put 11-2 Georgia in, or do you put 10-2 Michigan in?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on how bad they would lose to Alabama this week. If they keep it marginally close, then they would sneak in.
So a team that got to play for a conference championship, even though they lost, you would kick out and put in a team that couldn't play for a conference championship in 10-2 Michigan.
I mean, it's not that they didn't play for the championship, but when they had the ability to win to get in the championship, they got dominated.
So did Michigan.
No, that's what I meant by Michigan.
Oh, I thought you said you would put Michigan in over Georgia if Georgia got crushed.
Possibly, I mean.
This is what the committee goes through every time they sit down.
I don't know.
All right, so let's...
It can go either way, goddammit.
Let's break it down here. Let's make a prediction. Who are your final 4 teams? Tony, I'll start with you. How about we do this? We'll do a $4 bet. You have to get, for every team you get right in next week's CFP 4, you get to keep $1.
Okay, so
goody.
This is, wow.
Goody.
So this is who I actually think is going to be there, not who I would actually have as the top 4. Is that what we're saying here?
What do you think the CFP... All right, how about this? You go with yours.
Okay.
And then you go with... The bet will be what you think the CFP will have.
Okay, that's fair. So mine, even with games to play, mine top 4 teams are Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, and I think I would go with Oklahoma at this point. Although I think Ohio State is close in that regard, I would go with Oklahoma. So what the Final 4 will be would be, it'll be in this order. It'll be Alabama 1, Clemson 2, Notre Dame 3, and Oklahoma 4 would be my prediction of how it actually goes.
Fair enough. Felipe?
All right, so what I believe are the top 4 teams right now are Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, and Ohio State.
Okay.
And I believe it's going to be Alabama 1, Clemson 2, Oklahoma 3, Notre Dame 4.
Okay.
All right, so we should probably write these down.
Oh, yeah, do you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead, because I don't have any paper. Yeah. So you took, for our $4 bet, you took Bama, Clemson, Notre Dame, and Oklahoma. Is that what you took?
Yes.
All right, and Token took Bama, Clemson, Oklahoma, Notre Dame. Now, you don't have to get the numbers right. I think you just got to get the teams in. Or what do you think?
Oh, okay.
What do you think? $2 each. One if you get the team. One if you get the number.
I think you should get the number because the teams. We pretty much know a couple that are going to be there.
All right, fine. You got to get the.
Let's do the numbers. Yeah,
the numbers.
The number.
Yeah.
All right. So I would say what I believe should be the college football playoff.
Yeah, this will be fun.
Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and UCF.
Okay.
What I think is going to happen is Clemson will be number 1.
Okay.
Georgia will be number 2. Notre Dame 3.
Come on. You can't do that. You can't leave them on. I mean...
And Kentucky 4. No, I'm just kidding.
Verbal findings, sir.
Can't find a way for UCF to get in this, huh? Alabama 4.
Okay, sad. So how do we determine a winner here?
Whatever. So number 1, if it's your team, you get a point.
Okay.
Number 2, if it's your team, you get a point. Number 3, if it's your team, you get a point. Okay. Whoever has the most points either will win $4 from the other people, or you will split the pot.
Okay.
So if you both get all 4 right, and I don't, obviously, because I have my guys in different order, you guys will just split my $4.
Fair enough. Yeah,
Fair enough.
You're the only one that can cash in 3 spots out of the 4. You can't cash fully with Notre Dame at 3 because I have them there too.
Yeah, it's true.
That's good. Good stuff. I like it.
It is hard to see. Like, I mean, Ohio State's a good team. Oklahoma's a good team.
Yeah.
UCF's a good team. It's hard to see 3 teams like that out of the playoff.
Yeah. It's this year. Yep. This year has been a little rougher, I think, than normal. There's a lot of really big top end teams with only 1 loss. So.
And I get the whole, once we get 8, then 9 and 10 are gonna be like, well, we should be in. And once we get 12, then 13 and 14. But I mean, that's the thing about college football is you guys don't all play common opponents like the NFL. In the 32 games, the 32 teams, you play 16. Obviously, 6 of them are against your division, but you're generally playing common opponents, and your records speak. Your record speaks. Right. Like an 11-0 team in the NFL will not be the 8th seed. So it's just hard. I mean, and at the end of the day, we could all be wrong. They could finally, even despite status quo happening, they could finally go, all right, well, you know what? UCF beat Memphis by 50. Let's just do it. Let's watch them get their doors blown in by Alabama. This will be fun. But they can. That's the thing. They can do that if they want to. Right?
I know. Well, they could, yeah, but for ratings and all that, I don't think they would. But
and that's the thing. That's the problem. Why are they not keeping them in? Ratings.
Yes.
They won't generate the revenue dollars that the college football playoff demands. You make it 8 teams, then you don't have to worry. Then you're making so much more income.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. You're probably tripling what you'd make almost.
The thing is, if you made it an 18 playoff, 5 teams, 1 G5, and 2 at-larges, your 2 at-larges, if Alabama stayed at number 1, your 2 at-larges, like I said, could be Notre Dame and Georgia or Notre Dame and Michigan. One of those teams is going to be the 8th seed. Going to have to play Alabama first game. Alabama could lose. Not saying
they could, yeah.
But I'm saying they could lose that first playoff.
But there is a possibility, yes.
Yeah, I mean, you make the G5 team the 6th seed, they would play the 3 seed, which, I mean, the question would be, how would you rank the G5, the Power 5 winners? I mean, this year would be Bama, Clemson, Oklahoma, Ohio State, and let's just say for shits and giggles, it's Washington. Obviously, you would say Washington at 10-3 would be the worst of the P5s based on their record. It would go Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Washington, and then UCF 6, and then your outliers would be Notre Dame and Georgia 7 and 8. Just to say, Alabama and Georgia, we can get a rematch first week of the playoff.
Yeah.
There's something to be said as well for we'll have some conference realignment probably in the next 3, 4, 5 plus years as well, and there might be some major movement too, and this could all be very, very different if conferences get moved and teams, however they decide to do it.
Who do you think's moved?
Should be said for that. Well, I know that I had read an article about like 2020 something that there's going to be like a ton of movement because the way they have it set up now that these conferences and the deals they have only go through a specific time. So I don't know. I'm not really sure who would move and who wouldn't move. I think it has to do with like TV contracts and things like that. But I don't know. I know that there's certainly some group of 5 teams that play a lot bigger than they are. Like if we took, for example, Houston per se, which has a much larger base, and they certainly are a much bigger draw versus like ECU, which is in a very small random town in North Carolina and is not exactly a huge draw per se. So I think that you're going to have some of these other teams shuffle around a little bit here and there, and maybe some teams will leave the FBS. And other, of course, FCS teams might come through. I
can't imagine any team would be leaving the FBS voluntarily.
No, I wouldn't say it's necessarily voluntarily, but I don't know how conferences decide, who and what goes in and out. But I don't think there's any doubt that North Dakota State will have to be in the FBS at some point very soon, or I would assume so. And they would be a perfect spot for, one of those Western conferences. I'm not saying they could compete on the level of like a Pac-12, but certainly they would be a good fit for a Mountain West type of conference. But yeah, I'm not quite sure the conferences are going to remain exactly the way they are. So I think that will also have a say in if the playoff gets changed or not, or if we go to more teams, or however the decision is. I don't think we can go more than 8 teams. I'm pretty confident that's actually not really possible, just because there's not a lot of time in the schedule and the scheduling.
I keep saying that, but I feel like they'd find it. I mean, the season doesn't have to end January 10th.
It probably does. With in regards to like people watching and ratings, I'm pretty sure that if you stretch it out a little bit longer, that it becomes a negative deal. I would think. I would guess. I'm pretty confident that this is aligned the way it is for a reason. And I would think you get past the beginning of the year and things slow down, I would guess. I don't know. I'm not really sure about NFL ratings and how those all. Obviously, is a different thing, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know how it all works, but I would guess they would want to have it all done pretty much by the end of the year for the most part. So, but I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. I think so, but I don't know. Yeah. So, anyways, that was just my own take on it.
I've gone into the deep dive of Wikipedia of seeing all these conference realignments for schools that aren't football. Did you know the Florida Gators women's lacrosse team plays in the American Conference?
I did not know that.
Well, it's really
shocking.
And to speak to your point, the Idaho Vandals football team this year dropped from the Sun Belt down to the Big Sky.
Oh.
They are the only FBS program to voluntarily drop to FCS football.
The Kibbe Dome. I always used to enjoy watching games in the Kibbe Dome.
That has to be because of the travel. They were losing money traveling.
Probably.
The Sun Belt's not anywhere near Idaho.
No, they were in a bad spot there. And New Mexico State lost their conference. They were in one and no longer. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously some spots. UMass was in the MAC, and then I don't know how they got moved out of there, but they somehow did.
Where are they at now? Are they back in FCS?
No, they're independent. Fully independent.
Fully independent.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
So, and they just fired their coach. They're in a bad spot. So, yeah.
I'm actually really intrigued in this. Probably not so much on a podcast, but
no. Yeah, it's just something to think about, and it's interesting. And I don't really know how it all ends up.
The Notre Dame Fighting Irish men's hockey team has now moved to the Big Ten this year.
Ooh, nice.
Interesting.
The Oregon Ducks women's lacrosse team now plays in the Mountain West. It's kind of weird to think about stuff like that. Like you would think all of your teams play in a conference.
It is strange.
Yeah.
Football, UAB Blazers last year was their first year back into Conference USA. Anyways, okay, so before we wrap up here, I know we've talked about this. I mean, do you see any fun shakeup, or do you see this kind of just going status quo?
I guess it would probably
pick your upset
have
this
to
week.
be more status quo. Yes, I guess we'll take a shot, pick an upset. We can certainly do that. If I have to take one that I think has the best chance to be an upset, and we'll do a real spread. None of these 1 or 2 point things, which certainly I know is relatively easy to happen.
Okay.
I am going to take Texas over Oklahoma to make it 2 in a row for a season, and we really want to start hearing those Texas boosters. If they can beat Oklahoma twice in 1 year,
if they beat Oklahoma, then they're going to be pounded for playoff.
They probably will.
They actually are 4,000 to 1 to win the championship. They're the only team outside of the top 8 to be on the William Hill futures bets.
I probably
Interesting.
wouldn't want to be parting with any hard-earned cash on that
I
one.
parted with $2.
Oh, you did? Okay. So
$8,000 somehow they win? I'd be
have a
kicking
taker.
myself if I...
We have a taker.
But UCF was 1,000 to 1 as they've been the
Yeah.
field all year.
Yes.
They have been the field all year. They're up to 1,000 to 1. It
1,000
was
to 1.
basically 8 teams. The 8 teams that probably are realistically, 7 teams in Texas. And then the field, which
Right.
UCF's been a part of, at
Right.
1,000 to 1. So I put $5 on it, just in case.
I was going to say, if you didn't bet on UCF, but you bet on Texas, that would not be right.
No, I put $2 on Texas, $5 on UCF. But I also have $20 on UCF at 300 to 1 when the field was 300 to 1. So.
There you go.
Which, for whatever reason, I don't know why William Hill did not have UCF in the beginning of the year.
It's odd. Yeah, I don't know.
Whatever.
So, yeah, that would be my pick. Texas winning. And also, I'll just throw this in here before we hand it over. Of the non-major games and the non-conference championship games, I think ECU stands a pretty decent chance against NC State.
To cover?
Yes. They're getting 23 points now. It's down from 25.
That game's in progress right now.
Yes. Okay, so you're in the midst of it. Hopefully you already have action on it.
Fair enough. I'm going to say, well, like you said, I already picked my couple upsets. I said Georgia and Fresno State.
Yeah, legit ones.
What are your you got any upset possibilities for the championship games there, Felipe, Token, Tony?
Yeah, I like Northwestern against Ohio State for sure. I think they can fight hard, keep it close, and possibly pull it off. So
I agree.
Fair enough.
I think they have a chance.
All right, well, we appreciate you listening to our conference championship preview version of the Picks and Chatter podcast. We got a little bit of time here, so we're going to go over all the championships and our quick picks one more time. Texas and Oklahoma. I have Texas. Tony has Texas. And Token Tony has Texas.
Yes.
So that's our consensus. So that one's naturally going to be wrong. UAB and Middle Tennessee, the CUSA championship. I've got, Middle Tennessee. I refreshed it. They're already now a 1-point favorite. I got Middle Tennessee at the pick'em that we picked. Hopefully you could get that too. Tony's got UAB, and Token Tony has Middle Tennessee as well.
yep.
All right, so we got Memphis and Central Florida, UCF. The line is 3. I have UCF. Tony has.
I do not want to be picking this game, but I
You've
will.
already picked it once.
I will take. I will
Take a
take.
total, whatever
I
you
will
want.
take Memphis. I don't know anything about the total.
Memphis and Token Tony has.
I don't know.
I took UCF.
Yeah.
All right, Bam.
Or no, I actually said that it would be a push on the spread, but the over would come in play.
Okay.
There you go.
Give me the over.
All right, Fresno and Boise. I like Fresno to win the game. Tony.
I have the under, but I also would be on Fresno if I had to be on. In fact, that might be a parlay opportunity, by the way. But yes, on the under. But Fresno is my lean as well.
And Felipe.
I said Boise and the under.
All right, we got Alabama and Georgia. I took Georgia on the money line with a little bit on the 13.5. Tony
Georgia.
and Felipe.
I took Alabama.
All right, and Clemson versus Pittsburgh. My heart says Pittsburgh, and my wallet says teaser 34.5 for Pittsburgh and over 45.
Oof.
Tony.
Clemson laying obscene points.
Obscene point.
And I took Pitt.
The voice of reason.
Yeah.
Big token.
Northwestern Ohio State. I took OSU. Tony.
Northwestern, but I don't really love it.
And I like Northwestern, so.
All right, cool. That's a wrap on our picks. That's hopefully we're in full swing at this point of championship weekend. Hopefully Texas at this point. Let's see what hopefully they'll keep it close, like we said.
No, they're up already.
Oh, okay.
They're up.
Yeah.
I'm confident. It's
Already
10 to nothing.
Already up 10.
Yes.
In case you're wondering, we record this on Fridays, so we're guessing. Remember when we recorded it on the day we recorded during the Alabama Citadel game? And they're like, anybody who looked at just the box score was like, what are these guys talking about?
Yep.
Anyways. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up. We want to thank our sponsors, VGK Pop Sockets, Chai Poker, and, of course, 12 Ounce Sports Radio, where you're listening to us. If you want to catch our podcast at any time, you can catch it on vegassquares.com. We have our podcast. We have our Picks and Chatter podcast. We have our snippets. You can also catch articles from... Is there going to be a Finding the Edge this week? Because all 5 conferences will be in play.
No, there will not be. We will have a recap of the Finding an Edge, just talk about how the season went, but I'm also just going to talk some of the things we just mentioned on the radio. I am going to write out a little bit because I have a few other small thoughts that I wanted to add on. So, yep. Just be a nice article talking about the championship games.
All right, fair enough. Well, like I said, tune in to Vegas Squares for articles, picks and chatter, all of our podcasts and our snippets. As well as you can listen to us 4 times a week on 12 Ounce Sports Radio. All right, let's do this. I can do this. Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern, Thursdays 7 p.m. Eastern, Saturdays 11 a.m. Eastern, and Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern. Oh. Saturdays and Sundays are our college and NFL picks. I wonder what we're going to do for Saturday podcast when college football ends. See, if we could extend college football like you're so against, we could have more Picks and Chatter podcasts.
I'm not against it. I'm just saying that I don't think it's very likely a scenario.
Well, they don't go to school for school anyways. I think Cardell Jones said it best. Anyways,
Cardell is really who we need to be listening to, I think.
He's a role model for the kids.
Oh, he sure is.
He's part of Scott's Tots. Anyways, for Token Tony on the phone from the side of the MAC championship game. Tony Johnson, thank you both for being here and giving picks, and hopefully we do well this weekend. And it's been a fun season. I know we've got bowls and playoff coming up. But,
we'll be back talking this.
We'll be back for those, and we appreciate you all listening. Hopefully you've done well this season, either tailing us or fading us. That choice is yours. And we will catch you on another one.